If you've seen any of my other videos, you've probably seen me use the list of T. I talk about using lists a lot, and so I thought it'd be a good time to actually kind of take a step back and look at how you can use these lists or work with these lists. Since I'm advocating that your data access just load a list, there's probably more that you want to do with it than just have this huge list. You might want to filter it or sort it or pull information out of it. And that's what we're going to do today by looking at Linq. So let's dive right into looking at this demo I set up. So here we have a quick demo. I built this beforehand because I didn't want to walk you through kind of the boring process of setting things up when that really doesn't cover what this topic is about. But let's walk through what this is. I've got a solution here called Linq 101. In there, I've got 3 projects: console UI, form UI, and Linq library. Now, good naming conventions kind of gives you an idea of what each of these projects is. The console UI is a console application. The form UI is a form application. And then finally, the Linq library is a class library. So let's start there and look at the person class. This is really a foundation of what we're going to be working with today. And so my thought is we have this table somewhere in a database that has information about a person. Namely, it has the first name, last name, a years of experience, say a job, their birthday, which is a date time, and then I also have this full property, which is actually just a read-only property that takes other properties and puts them together. So the full name just says first name space last name. So this is the data that we store in a database. And so my thought is we're going to somehow talk to the database. It's going to populate a list of these items. Now, again, talking to a database, not really part of this video. So I created this other list manager class, and it has one method, and its job is to simply load sample data. So what this does is it creates a list of type person, a list of T, called output, and then it adds a whole bunch of sample records. And finally, it returns that whole list. So that's going to be where you'd have your data access. So instead of saying load sample data, maybe you'd say load data or whatever. And this code right here, instead of actually just creating samples, it would instead go to a database, get the information, and load it into our list. And if you're not quite sure how to do that, I'll have another video on how to do that, but my quick advice is go look at Dapper. That's actually a tool developed by the team that does Stack Overflow. And it's a really, really great tool. It makes it really easy to talk to a database and get back this list of type object or model. So that's a quick aside. Let's get back to what we're doing. So we have this person class. We have the list manager, which simply loads the sample data. Now let's go look at our console UI, which is where we're going to start. Now notice my console UI is bolded, which means that it's set as a startup project. Inside program.cs, I have a list of person called people, and I populate that by saying list manager.load sample data. So I'm just saying, give me a sample data to start with, and that's what's getting put into the people object. And then I say for each person and people, go ahead and write out this information. And this information is their first name space their last name, and then in parens I have their birthday to a short date string, and then after that I have colon space experience, and then the number of years of experience they have. And that's really it. So it just gets the list of people and it loops through each one and says all the information we have on them. So let's run this. And we see here's our list. And so, Tim Corey, the birth date, which is not my actual birth date, And then it says years experience and 20. And the next person, so on and so forth. So that's our setup. That gets us at least in the door. We have this list of people, but now we want to work on this list and do some changes to it. So first, let's look at the idea of ordering it. Right now, again, I'll load this up here. Right now, it's unordered. It's just kind of there. So let's look at ordering by last name. Notice Corey, Smith, Storm, Jones, Doe, and Smith. So that's definitely not in last name order. So if we were to say people equals people dot order by, and then we say X equals greater than X dot last name. And finally, I have to say toList. And the reason why is because the order by returns an I enumerable, or I ordered enumerable. And that's not what we really want. We actually want a list because we're putting it right back into our people list. Now I'm overwriting my people list with this ordered people list. I could put this into a new list if I wanted to. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking my list and I'm saying order by, which is pretty self-explanatory. But then I do this X and then the equals greater than, which kind of looks like an arrow. And that's really what it's designed for. It's not equals greater than, it's just an arrow. And so I'm saying X represents one person. Think of this order by as doing a for each. But it kind of strips away all the stuff you don't need. Because it says order by, so therefore I know it's a for each, therefore you don't need to say for each. And we don't need to say var person, we'll just put the actual variable, which we'll call X. And then we don't need to say in people because we know that it's the people list. So therefore this equals greater than as arrow sign simply is like we went here and said, okay, let's do the curly braces. So this line right here is this. So we're just saying X dot last name. Since we're ordering, we know that we want to order by then the last name property of each person in the people list. Now let's look at this and see how it works. Corey, Doe, Jones, Smith, Smith, and Storm. So it works. Now, I know this can be just a bit confusing at first, but the really cool thing here is IntelliSense works. So if I were to say X dot, I have my list of, okay, it's a person, therefore here are the properties and methods you can perform on this person. So that's order by, and that's really all there is to it. It's pretty simple. You just have to remember this funky arrow symbol. So now you might be thinking, well, that's great, ordered by last name, but what if I wanted to order it descending? That's ascending. You know, so if you look, C comes before D, in the alphabet. So what if I wanted to have it Storm, Smith, Smith, Jones, Doe, and Corey, kind of in reverse order here? Well, there's actually, if you hit, I'm going to hit Control J here. Instead of order by, there's order by descending. And now, nothing else has changed. If I hit start, now we've ordered by last name descending. Which is great, but what if we wanted to order by more than one thing? Well, these can be chained together, but you can't say dot order by, because that'll mess things up. So not order by or order by descending next. Instead, you say dot then by or then by descending. Let's do then by descending. And same thing here, X, that arrow sign, X dot, And this time, let's do it by years of experience. So now it's years of experience going to be descending after we've already ordered by the last name. And the reason I chose that is because we have two Smiths here, Mary and Joe. Notice that now Mary comes first in our list because Mary has 16 years experience, whereas Joe has 12. The rest aren't changed because we ordered by their last name first, and so there's only one of each other type. But with Smiths, there's two of them. Just to show a difference here, let's change that to ThenBy instead of ThenByDescending. So now we have Joe Smith first because he has 12 years of experience versus Mary's 16 years experience. But the rest is still in the same order. So that's order by. The first time you order, you have the order by or order by descending. After that, you hit the dot, and then you say then by or then by descending. So that's ordering, but what else can we do? Well, we can also say people equals people dot where. And what this is going to do is filter our list down to a smaller group. All right, so again, X, and you don't have to choose X. That's just a variable name, so it's any name you want it to be. You could say person if you wanted to. But I choose X. That's a pretty common one to use. So X dot, and let's say years of experience is greater than 5. And again, to list, because we want to convert it back to a list of T, or a list of person. So this is a bit different than the order by. In the order by, we just specify the property name. But here we're saying where. Well, a where clause, you have to have a comparison or some kind of true or false statement, kind of like an if statement. And so this would be the part of the if statement that determines true or false. So what it's going to say is, if this statement is true for this particular person, that gets added to the new list. If it's false, it does not get added to the new list. So in this case, our comparison is X dot years experience. So the person's years experience has to be greater than 5. So let's look at this. We run this. Now if we notice, we've dropped off Sue Storm. Sue Storm only has 1 year of experience. And just to make that a little more clear, notice that Sarah Jones and Jamie Doe have 8 and 7 years experience, respectively. So let's change this to be greater than 9. Now we only have 3 items in our list. Now also note, let's filter this a little bit further, but this time we're going to change the filter. Again, you'll notice that we're only filtering by one thing, years experience, which probably isn't real world. Probably we want to filter by more than one thing. So let's look at this month they were born. January, February, and March. What if we said we also only wanted people who were born in March, which should be just Joe Smith? Down here in our where clause, we could say, and a double ampersand, X dot birthday dot month equals 3. See, it acts just like an if statement. So we can have the ands and the ors. We can have the double equals for equals. We can have the greater than, equal to, less than, whatever you want to arrive at a Boolean variable or Boolean value. So in this case, our where is now saying years experience is greater than 9 and the month that they were born equals 3, or March. And now we get just Joe Smith. one more I want to show you before we move on to the form UI. This one's a little bit different in the fact that we're actually not going to loop through our list of people. So we can comment that out as well. I'll actually move down here. I'm going to say int years total equals people.sum. X equals greater than, or the arrow sign, x dot years experience. And what this is going to do is take the sum of the years of experience for each person and put that into a total. And then we can say console write line so the total years experience is, and then years total. If we run that, we see the total years experience is 64. Now, what if we make that a little more comprehensive and kind of pull in more of our examples? So let's actually do this. I'm going to copy this line right here. And then initialize the experience and assign it here, because I'm actually going to comment this out. And instead I'm going to do it again, but this time, before I do a sum, I'm going to say where x equals x dot years. Let's do birthday. Birthday dot month equals 3. Sum x arrow x dot years experience. So now what I'm saying is give me only the people who have a birthday month of 3 and give me their total years experience. We run that and we have 20. So see, we can actually chain these together, whether it be the where clause and then the sum, or the where clause and then the order by and then by. All these can be chained together as long as it makes sense. For example, you'd want to do the where clause first before you do the order by. It just makes sense. So that's the basics of Linq and how you can use it with lists to really dial in on what you want from your list. There's a whole lot more you can go into, but we're not going to dive into that today. Instead, I want to take you to one more spot and show you how we could use this in a productive manner in a form application. So let's go over to our form UI. I'm going to actually set this as a startup project. And now look at my dashboard. Again, I've built this beforehand. So what I have here is all of my people. And then I have, when you select one, it'll allow you to change their year's experience and hit update. Now, right now, this filtered people list isn't hooked up. So if we run this, I'll move it over. Here's my list of people. Notice Tim Corey has 20 years experience, whereas Sue Storm has 1 year's experience. And if I change that to 15 and hit update, nothing seems to happen. But if I were to go to Joe Smith, who has got 12, and come back to Sue Storm, she still has 15 years experience. So there has been a change made. But what we want to do is have this list over here, this list box, give me all the people in this dropdown as long as they meet a certain criteria. So let's do that. Let's look at the code behind for this. So here's the code behind for our dashboard. What we have here is I've got a list of persons called people, and that's just our load sample data from our list manager. And then I have this initialize bindings. So what this does is it assigns this list of people to my dropdown. So dropdown.dataSource equals people. Now, it used to be you'd have to do data binding in order to get these two to work. What I found is that a list of T works just fine as a data source in both the combo box and the list box. So in this case, the all people dropdown right here, we've got a list of T, or a list of person, going into it. So that's fine. And then the display member is which property do you want to display. Now that's inside quotes, which means no IntelliSense. So what I recommend you do is go over here to person and actually copy the name and paste it in here. So that's all that happens in the beginning in our constructor, is initialize bindings. So that wires up this dropdown right here. But we also have an event on this dropdown, and that's right down here, all people dropdown underscore selected index changed. And when that happens, I grab the selected item from the all people dropdown, and I say that is of type person, because by default, if you notice, it's type object. But since we know that's a list of person in that dropdown, we can cast that to a type person and put that into a new variable. And now we can use that variable to say .years experience and put that into the picker value, which is right here. So when this index changes, it grabs that person, looks at their years experience, and puts it here. Then we have this update button here. And the update button, it does the same thing. It grabs the selected person from the dropdown. It takes the years experience picker's value, which comes out as a decimal. It converts it to an int 32. And then it puts that into years experience for the selected person. And the last thing it does is it updates bindings. Now, currently, there's no bindings to update. It just is. But we're going to get to that. So again, let's go ahead and run this right now and see that, yes, we do have this list. It does work. Yay. But now let's go ahead and add in this filtered list. And this filtered list here, what I want it to do is say only give me people that have at least 5 years of experience. So let's start with our initialize bindings. We're going to say filtered people list dot data source equals people dot where x arrow x dot years experience is greater than or equal to 5. To list. And that to list is important because if you did not do a to list, it's actually an I ordered enumerable list. I ordered enumerable or I enumerable. And that I enumerable is not the same thing as a list, and therefore the data source will have a problem and it'll blow up. But a list works just fine. And now we're going to say the filtered people list dot display member equals full name as well. Now remember that this people is actually creating a new list. It's not filtering the existing people list. Before, when we were in program.cs, when we did the where clause here, we actually took the result and put it into people, basically overwriting the current list with the filtered list. But here, we're not doing that. We're just taking that filtered list and we're putting it into this data source. There's never a variable that holds it explicitly. And that's kind of important. So let's look at what that's going to initially look like. Bring that over here. Now we have this list. Notice that of these two lists, this list has Sue Storm, this one does not. The reason why, Sue Storm only has 1 year of work experience. Therefore, she's not on the filtered list. But if I go to Sue Storm's record and put her at 15 years experience, and I hit update, nothing happens over here. In fact, Joe Smith has 12, go back to Sue Storm, she has 15, still not on the filtered list. Why is that? Well, because we didn't actually make a change to our data source. What we did is we changed the people list, but that's not this list, and the data source doesn't really know that something has changed inside the list. So what we need to do is in our update bindings, we have to basically just copy this line and paste it. Basically saying, do it again, run it again. And now remember that every time we hit the update button, it calls that update bindings, which redoes the data source for the filtered people list. If we run this, again, same thing, no Sue Storm. If I go on to Sue Storm's record and I change that to 15 and I hit update, now she's over here in this list. And if I come to Tim Corey and I change him to 2 years experience, he goes off the list. I change Sue back to 1 year, she too is off the list, and so on and so forth. So now we have a list that's filtered and that responds to changes in that list. So this can be very powerful for having one master list of data, but then different filter lists based upon what you want to show or how you want to show it. We can order these as well. In fact, let's do that. Instead of just saying where, we can then say order by x arrow x dot last name, then by x arrow x dot first name. And that's just ascending order. And don't forget that we have to take that down to here as well. So I'll copy that and paste it. So now that our update bindings has it as well. And if I hit start and pull us over, so now these are ordered based upon where they fit in the list. And if I change Sue to be 15, she shows up in the proper position for her name. And again, the two Smiths are ordered properly. Joe comes before Mary because J is before M. So that's how you can use Linq to really affect how your lists show up in your forms and other places. Hopefully that's been informative and helps you better understand how to really take your list to the next level in usage. Thanks for watching. As always, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. And also there's a link down below for my mailing list. I don't spam you, but that's a great place to get more information about these videos, as well as other things that are upcoming, including discounts that may be available only for my mailing list subscribers. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask those in the comments down below. I'll do my best to answer them as I can.